I'm Junea Rocha. I'm the co-founder and CMO of Brazi Bites. I'm excited to be here today. I know I stand between lunch and you, so I promise this will be fun. Stick with me here. So I'm going to share with you today, we've got about 15, 20 minutes. I'm going to share the wild ride that I've been on in the last 9 years. And the way I'm going to structure our time together is that I'm going to split. The business has gone through a huge journey and a bunch of different crazy stuff. So there's going to be 3 different sections of it. Section 1 is going to be the bootstrapping phase. Section 2 is going to be the growing phase. And Section 3, hitting the gas, which is the phase we're on now. In those 3 phases, I'm going to share how we tackle brand awareness, staffing, and production. And then I'm going to share some lessons learned. So Brazi Bites is a better-for-you food company making Latin-inspired products that are delicious and happen to be naturally gluten-free. So the original mission of the company was to bring Brazilian cheese bread to the U.S. market. Brazilian cheese bread is the most popular snack food in South America and in Brazil. It's wildly popular. It's ingrained in the culture. I grew up eating it. I loved it. It happens to be naturally gluten-free, made with tapioca flour. And in 2010, I saw this opportunity along with my husband and co-founder that we could bring this product to America and sort of put it in a way that Americans could understand, brand it, have the right recipe, and have the right message, and be at the right retailers. While this product existed here, and it's been around for hundreds of years in South America, it wasn't in the stores that we shop. So that was the idea that ignited the start of Brazi Bites. So this is a real accurate revenue graph of the journey of this brand. And this is going to make a lot of sense to you as I go through my presentation today. Phase 1, bootstrapping. Chapter 1, a lot of grinding there. Trying to really get this thing going. Chapter 2, growing. Chapter 3, hitting the gas. So let's get into Chapter 1, bootstrapping, or as I like to call it, the grind. And not just any grind. Like a pretty epic grind, pretty epic, that lasted 5 years, involved non-stop work, every day of the week, every hours of the day, a benefit of a husband and wife team, you never stop, and included no paycheck for us founders for 5 years growing this brand. During those 5 years, the priority was about proving the viability of the product and proving the viability of the business. This is a frozen foods company, and we were first-time entrepreneurs. But we knew there was an opportunity and that this product and this idea was special, and nobody was doing it well. We grew to the natural channel, started knocking on doors in our local market in Portland, Oregon. So brand awareness during the grind phase was all about in-store demos and really being at the point of purchase with the consumer and starting to collect that data and learning. We started doing local events. We did all kinds of events during those early years. We did beer fests, we did marathons, we did kids event. Think about, we did street fairs, every kind of event. We were starting to collect data on why were people attracting to this brand? What were they enjoying about the product? So a variety of things, and some of them didn't make sense, but we were learning from them. And then we started doing organic social media. Production was in-house during those 5 years. We started a commercial kitchen, one of those shared commissary kitchens where you pay by the hour, you make your product, you pack your things, and you go home. Then we started growing and moved to a shared facility with multiple manufacturers in our hometown, but it could grow and a little bit more controlled. And then towards the end of it, we built our own plant. This was the only path forward for us. We didn't have a choice. Nobody was making Brazilian cheese bread in the US market, but it turned out to be a really good thing. Staffing, 2 founders and production, 5 years. That was it. So let's talk about some lessons from the grind period for Brazi Bites. Lesson number 1 on brand awareness, sharing with the entrepreneurs here in the crowd. Find what works and stick with it. We were trying a bunch of different stuff, and we were bootstrapping, so we didn't have a lot of resources. At some point during that period, we built a food truck. We thought that was a good idea. We drove around town, and we baked freshly baked cheese bread, and sometimes we sold, sometimes we handed out samples. And we thought that if people saw our logo driving around in a van in the streets of Portland, they would make the connection and drive to Whole Foods and buy our product in the freezer section. So about a year later, we realized that was so time-consuming. We cut the food truck, we sold it. And I will say, the food truck is not necessarily a boneheaded idea. It's not a horrible idea. It just wasn't right for that moment in time in the development of Brazi Bites. We were in a handful of stores. We were a frozen foods company. So the right thing to do was to really drive awareness at the point of sale. Big lesson there, and it really shifted for us to be focused. Make yourself an operations expert. This is an important lesson for founders here. To us, that came in the form of self-manufacturing, right? We run our plant. We became obsessed about product quality, taste and quality and shape and product experience and consumer. There was an obsession. We understood the chemistry of the product, how the employees felt at every stage of the production process. I literally, at some point, almost blessed every bag that came out of the facility and went to stores. What that did for us as we scaled the brand is that it made us a lot more knowledgeable and powerful in negotiating our contracts with our co-packers when we had to scale and move away from this process. So I'm not saying that self-manufacturing is the right path for all brands. Maybe you're using a co-packer, but find a way to be an expert and be the #1 expert about your product. Limited capital can be a good thing. We obviously bootstrapped during that phase. It was very challenging. Looking back, it was a good thing. It allowed us to be focused. It pushed us to be nimble, to be scrappy, to find the right tension in the business model to make it profitable eventually. Stay lean. Don't get too top-heavy too fast, right? There's a trend in our industry now where we just, launch a product, hire a bunch of executives that have done it before. Think about the timing, make sure the timing is right. For us, we were extremely lean, but it allowed us to move quickly and make decisions quickly. As we're learning from those events, we could change, we could pivot the brand, we could evolve very rapidly. We didn't have a lot of opinions and didn't have to get consensus, and that can slow you down. Last one, track the wins and replicate. During those early stages, right, you're getting a lot of no's, but you're getting some wins. Why are people buying your product? Why are certain events working and some not? Pivoting, and this one is critical. So the overarching theme for us during the grind phase of growing this brand is knock on 100 doors, get 99 no's, focus on the one yes. We got a lot of no's. We got no's from buyers. We got no's from investors, angel investors, no after no after no. Nobody was getting what we were trying to do. But entrepreneurs and founders, you need to be your own cheerleader, right? This is about because you're the only one who's seeing everything, every piece of it. You're seeing what's working. And sometimes it's hard to communicate that with an investor when your revenue is not there yet. So that's the grind phase. We're going to move on. We're going to move on to the next phase, the growing phase. So the growing phase of Brazi Bites starts 5 years in, and it was ignited by our appearance on Shark Tank. Shark Tank has been a topic today. And what happened for us at that point, to give you a perspective where we ended the grind period, we're in about 800 points of distribution, almost $1 million in revenue. About 4 regions at Whole Foods, Sprouts, Wegmans, and some specialty markets around the country. And we have the opportunity to go on Shark Tank. We go on Shark Tank week before Thanksgiving, perfect time of year for our product. Everybody's watching TV, cozying up in their homes. 9 million people watch the show. The sharks love the product. They take a bite on Brazi Bites and they say, "This is so delicious. I can't believe that's gluten-free." 9 million people watch the show, trust the sharks' judgment on TV, and something that we had never experienced before. They drive to stores the next day. They clear out every single bag across the country in those 800 points of distribution. 3 days later, Whole Foods sells out, Sprouts sells out, all the UNFI DCs are wiped. The company completely changes overnight. From begging for shelf space, from begging for angel investors, it reversed. A week later, we emerged a huge company that was profitable, that couldn't get enough, that investors were begging. But we didn't need investors anymore. The product was the investment. The product was working. The 3 years were all about taking advantage of that massive exposure, putting our head down, and just, we finally got discovered in a meaningful, big way. Shark Tank was the big thing, but we continued to do in-store demos. We started doing gluten-free events, very targeted in major markets and social media. So Brazi Bites is not a gluten-free company, but all of our products are naturally gluten-free by nature. And so we serve the gluten-free consumers in a great way, and they're really loyal. We discovered that if we were hyper-focused on our event strategy and focus on the gluten-free consumers, that was really positive ROI because they're loyal, they write repeat purchase, and they're great drivers of word of mouth for us. So during that time, we moved production, we shut down a facility, we moved the company to a co-packing model, and staffing becomes more of a sales and marketing operation. So lessons from the growing phase. Find your Shark Tank and get as much as you can out of it. So whether it's Shark Tank, it's a Food Network show, it's a celebrity, it's an influencer, or it's a retailer that really believes in you, and it's going to give you the right merchandising activity, and it's going to give you the exposure, find it, because it's crowded out there in the industry. There's a lot of new products coming to market all the time, and you got to find a way to break through the noise. The only easy way was yesterday. I don't know if folks here are familiar with this military saying, but to us, what that means is like work even harder, right? So for 5 years we grind. It's pretty exhausting. And then finally we break through and people want Brazi Bites. They want our product. We're selling out everywhere. You could have put our feet up. But to us, it was time to work even harder. It's time to work and really make this thing happen. So we put our heads down and we kept working even harder. Focus energy where you add the most value. To us, it was a decision to shut down manufacturing in-house and move into a co-packing model to scale. While we were capable and we knew how to manufacture the product, it was time to part ways. It's really exhausting. Running a plant is pretty hardcore, and it's hard to do everything. So we made the decision that it was time to focus on sales and marketing and growing the brand that only we could do, and we were going to outsource manufacturing. Put your brand to work. To us, that came in the form of revamping the brand architecture. So we were talking about design earlier today, and I'm a huge believer in brand design. It has to be right. When we were getting all this exposure, the brand wasn't ready. It wasn't up to snuff. So we very quickly, with those 6 months, we invested, we fixed the brand architecture and used all the knowledge that we had gathered during those 5 years to really create this brand that you see here today. And it's a brand that's really working. The product and the brand architecture and the packaging and the messaging has to communicate all of our values. And last one, look beyond the term sheet when selecting partners. This has been a common advice here today in the conference, and I'm just here to say that again, to make sure it's sinking in. While I'm not getting into fundraising in my presentation today, because that's a huge, complex subject. I will say that in the journey of Brazi, we worked with angels and we worked with different investors, and there were different dynamics there. What happened during the growing phase is that we saw massive exposure. We went from $1 million in revenue, the next year 8.5 to 13. It was massive. The company grew so fast, it became the third fastest growing food company in the United States during that time. We were rolling. The product was being well received. The consumers were loving it, but we didn't have the right infrastructure behind the scenes to continue to grow. So that growing period ends with us looking for a partnership to structure the company behind the scenes operationally build the right team because, seven people at that time, it was hard to scale, so it was time to reset. We ran a really thoughtful process. We had some experience with angels and other types of investors, and we really knew we needed to do this right. We ran a process, found the right partners in SFEP, San Francisco Equity Partners, that then helped us reset, restructure, and hit the gas. That's what's coming up. So hitting the gas, this is where we're in now. It's really exciting. If you look at that revenue graph, you're going to see that there was a normalized revenue year where we reset, where we look inwards and we go structure the company, make sure we have the right team, make sure we have the right systems in place to fuel the growth and build on all these amazing things that we have done over the last few years. Brand awareness and hitting the gas phase. To us, it's all about co-marketing with our partner retailers. Retailers that have supported us, that give us the right assortment, right merchandising activities, we're going to invest in them. We're going to lean in. Obviously, we do digital, we do social. We continue to do in-store demos, but much more strategic now. And we also continue with the gluten-free shows. So this is an event, this is an example of an influencer campaign. Look to the folks in the back. All right. This is an example of an influencer campaign that we're running to support Costco in a national distribution this holiday season. So as our retailers support us with national distribution, we support them with bringing the consumers and the influencer marketing and stuff like that. So next time you go to Costco, make sure you're picking up your essentials, giant teddy bears and Brazi Bites. So production now, it's getting more complex, and it should. It needs to support the brand. We launched our very first product line extension, empanadas, this year at Expo West. Really excited about that. And we now have 2 co-packers in different parts of the country. The staffing looks a lot more, conventional as you see as a company grows. We have, as founders continue heavily involved, but we brought in support in a CEO, operations, sales, and marketing. And we have finally a board of directors that's diverse and can support the company, and hands-on and support from our equity partners, SFEP. Lessons we're learning, these are more things like how we're watching out now, things that we're being, we know it can bite us, that we're like keeping an eye on. We're being thoughtful about innovation and channel development. So now we have the right team, we're bringing the resources, we have this great brand, and where should we go? Where can we go? Where do we have permission to go? Paying very close attention to that. Finding balance between structure and speed. So this brand achieves success with speed, with focus, with changing very quickly, with being nimble and scrappy, right? And now we're bringing a lot of new bodies. We're creating structure. But there's a balance, right? And what is it? Work in progress. Work in progress. Embrace change. Brazi 3.0 is the 3rd phase. I think for all of us here, it's a common subject. Our industry is changing rapidly. The demands from the consumers, the way our partner retailers structure their own businesses, the way consumers see the freezer section, the way they travel through and shop the freezer, all of that is changing. So inside our company, we have to be open to change. Anybody on our team, right? And lastly, the grind never stops. It really doesn't, but that's the whole fun of it. That's why we're still in the game, and we love the industry. So going back to the journey that I walked you through today, you can see it's been a wild ride full of ups and downs, but it's been a lot of fun. Thank you.
So let's join me on the white space chairs for a couple questions. So, looking back, it seems like there was a clear path to growth that came about. But during the grinding years, did you have a plan in your head that you were trying to adhere to, or were you just trying to make it through?
We had a plan. So we knew the company was going to be a frozen foods company, right? And we identified that the path for growth for us was going to be Whole Foods. And so even like in the very early stages, as we were developing like year 1, year 2, we felt like the path forward to national distribution during that period of time was Whole Foods. We identified them as the right partner. Because if we got, there was a path forward back then. Today, the dynamics are a little bit different. But we could get one Whole Foods location, and then the region, and then the next region, and the next region. And from there, you would open up national distribution. So we were pretty clear on that strategy. It wasn't a straight line, but that was the vision.
And I do know Whole Foods will be addressing some of that path for some of you guys tomorrow in their discussion as well as in their breakout today. So stay tuned for more on that topic. But it sounds also very, this was a struggle. It was hard. So how did you realize how far you could push yourself? Was there a point where you had to say, look, I got to cut myself some slack. I just can't add this, or I can't do this?
There were so many low points. And all of the entrepreneurs here on stage know this. There are times you're like, are you kidding me? But we were really like latching on like the good things that were happening. It felt like and a lot of the hardships also, like when you were self-manufacturing, running a plant, there's a lot of hardships involved with that. And then you'll try to launch a new brand and kind of figure all those things out. But we were really like latching on the good stuff, It almost feels like the universe, every time like there was a hardship, there was good news. Like the phone rang and Wegmans said, I love this, I want to carry this. Wegmans was one of the, first retailers to pick up the product and see us, at a very first Expo West with a super rough booth. And they were like, what is this? Take a bite and like, I want to have this product. So those types of wins, and putting the product in front of people, what kept us going was really understanding the potential of the product and the idea. We were the only ones seeing all of the great things that were happening. And so we're like, we got to keep going, right? It was kind of like, we got to find a way through this grind. There is a way. We don't know what the way is, but there is one, and we're just going to keep going.
So now you're pressing on the gas, but you're still very strategic. So I don't want to make it sound like are you saying yes to everything? Or is there still times where you're like, okay, pull back, does this adhere to the plan?
Today, we're very focused and strategic, but we have more resources and more people and more brain power to make those decisions. While up until now, a couple of years ago, it was just 2 people, right? And so now we have more brain power. But we still are very conscious about what got us here and what made this brand successful. And we don't want to deviate too far from that, right? Why are people buying our products? That needs to continue, right? We don't want to deviate from the delicious taste, the naturally gluten-free, the better for you ingredients, the authentic brand story that we have.
Now, you mentioned the team that's joined you. How hard has it been for you to step back and delegate and say, okay, you've got this. I'm going to let you run with it?
I'm hyper involved in the companies, so I haven't taken a step back. So Cameron and I, co-founders, I'm the CMO, he's the COO, and we have a CEO that helps us run, the board and all of the CEO duties. And so it wasn't overnight. We came in fully head on, and it was a sort of a very thoughtful process. So we brought in people that really understands us, believe in our mission, and kind of know who we are. So it's been a great process. To have a bunch of smart people working on the brand that we build, it's pretty cool.
Well, I think the whole story sounds pretty cool. Thank you so much for sharing that journey with us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy the video? For more from NOSH, hit subscribe and ding the bell.